altitude.
Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome again to Kourou, the home of Ariane, for tonight's live broadcast of Arianespace, flight number 162. We're coming to you live and direct, as we always do, from the Jupiter Mission Control Building, the nerve center of Europe's spaceport.
Your commentators for tonight are, in French, Pierre Junier and myself, Claude Bernard. In English, Joshua Jean-Paul and Board Elliot Sign. Follow us on www.arianespace.com.
We're ready to go at under 18 minutes. Hi again, everybody. I want to introduce immediately Bård Ellertson, whom we're glad to have back with us, Vice President, Business Development at Swedish Space Corporation. Hi.
Good evening, Joshua. Låt mig också säga hej och välkomna till alla svenska lyssnare här i Kourou och hemma i Sverige.
We're looking down in the Jupiter Mission Control Building. There's the mock-up of the Ariane 5. We're inside that building right there. This is what it looks like where we are. We're going to take a look at the Arianespace Flight Directorate, which has Arianespace's top management led by Jean-Yves Le Gall right there.
And now we'll have see an interview with Mr. Le Gall, where he will tell us what he thinks about Arianespace's future.
Mr. Le Gall, the space sector's seen a few rough years, but there is talk of an improvement in the market for 2005. Do you see such an upturn?
I think that today we're in a period of low growth linked to the fact that telecom satellite operators have gone through a real financial crisis in recent years. They have put off till better days investing in satellite fleet replacements. These better days will come, we believe, in 2 to 3 years. In parallel, I think we will also see new technologies emerging, which will need satellites. I'm thinking in particular of high-definition TV. Taken together, these two developments will mean that the relatively flat period we've been going through should be a thing of the past in a couple of years' time.
How is Arianespace positioning itself to be able to take advantage of the evolution of the market?
We are positioning ourselves as we have always done. This approach has made us the market leader despite a depressed market. We anticipate the needs of our clients. How do we do this? Well, on the technical side, by preparing a launcher of increased flexibility and payload capacity. I'm referring to the Ariane 5, 10 tons, of course, which will fly again next year. In terms of added value services to our customers, we can furnish financial tools, very competitive insurance rates, by and large what the market is looking for. I believe this approach is working well, judging by the numbers of contracts we've signed since the beginning of the year.
Tell us about the new launcher product line now, please. What advantages will it bring to Arianespace?
Well, the new line of launchers illustrates precisely the approach I mentioned earlier, anticipating customers' needs. The European ministers decided in May that Arianespace will commercialize within 3 years, which is a very short time in our field of activity. Here in Kourou, the launchers Ariane 5, Soyuz, and the smaller Vega vehicle. This summer, we also signed an agreement with BLS, Boeing Launch Services, and MHI, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, guaranteeing backup and mutual assistance among Ariane 5, Sea Launch, and H2A. This agreement is called Launch Services Alliance. Here again, this is very promising because our customers have requested the options this type of arrangement can offer them. Today, this is a done deal. It's another arrow in our quiver.
Fourth launch of the year tonight, the 14th commercial launch for the Ariane 5, the 150th commercial launch since Ariane got going, the first triple launch for the Ariane 5.
Let's now present to you the highlights of tonight's broadcast.
During the broadcast tonight, you'll follow the launcher campaign for Flight 162 from its assembly to rollout to the launch pad. We'll also bring you the latest news from Arianespace, plus news of major appointments in the European space sector.
On the spacecraft side, you'll also see how the three passengers, INSAT 3E, eBird and Smart 1, are prepared for their launch on Ariane 5 once they arrive in French Guiana.
And, of course, in less than 1/4 of an hour, liftoff of Flight 162. All right, now you know what's ahead. The green status panels on the left give the summary of the go, no-go operations on the entire base. Board?
Well, you can see that as the top of a pyramid. There are operations going on in this room, out at the launch site, and all around the world on downrange stations and the like. And the readiness status of all of those is reported back through these green status lights we have here. And let's hope that they stay green.
In Jupiter again, 13 minutes to go. We're on time and we're on target. We're going to take a look at the mission director, Remy Cochet, the man with the mustache. We heard from him earlier in the week. He's going to tell you all about tonight's mission. Coming right up.
Tonight's Ariane mission will place into geostationary transfer orbit 2 telecommunication satellites and 1 scientific satellite. The 2 telecom satellites are INSAT 3E for the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, with a launch mass of 2,775 kilograms, and eBird for EUTELSAT at 1,525 kilograms. The scientific satellite Smart 1 weighs 370 kilograms. The launcher used tonight is an Ariane 5, generic version. It will lift off with a total mass of 750 tons. The geostationary transfer orbit has rather typical characteristics: a perigee of 650 kilometers and an apogee of 36,000 kilometers. The launch window this evening is 19 minutes. It opens at 11:02 Universal Time and closes at 11:21 Universal Time.
We're here in Jupiter, but as Board indicated when he was speaking about the green status panels, there's lots more activity going on this big base, 50 square kilometers. In particular, at the launch center, which is where the manager, who's called the COEL, is in charge of everything related to the launcher and the pad. We're going to be hearing from him in a minute. The COEL starts work at the beginning of the campaign and oversees some, 900, I think, operations necessary to prepare the launch vehicle.
The COEL for tonight's launch is called Daniel Groult, and we will now let him explain to us what he has been doing the last few weeks and what he will do tonight.
We're in front of the launch center, the nerve center of all launch campaign operation activities. From here we direct the assembly of the launcher, then all checkouts, and finally, and most important, the launch countdown. This building is located about 4 kilometers from the launch zone. It ensures that all personnel are protected at the moment of liftoff.
Et permet pour l'ensemble des personnels d'être protégés à l'instant du départ. Nous sommes ici dans le centre de contrôle.
This is the control center. It represents the culmination of all personnel activities, which began in mid-July with assembly of the launch vehicle for Flight 162. The launcher campaign is divided into different steps. The first was a mechanical phase, which lasted a week, during which we put the different parts of the launcher together. This was followed by a series of electrical checks. Then we begin the final phase. We're going to start the launch activities, which need around 150 people working in this control center to make sure we can spot any eventual anomaly. A slight pause was necessary to let the INSAT teams perform some additional checks on their satellite. But after this, we began what we call combined operations, which include both launcher and satellite at the same time. These operations last 10 days non-stop and bring us down to tonight's launch date. This launch day is also split in 2 parts. One part lets crews have access to the launch zone to work on the final adjustments vital to preparing the launcher and ground installations. The second part concerns filling operations. For this, no one is allowed near the launcher because of the risks involved with the propellants. These operations take us down to liftoff.
Well, we have heard from the mission director, and now we have heard from the COEL. Another key player in the events that have led up to tonight's launch is the Ariane payload manager, Mr. Jean-François Lomonier, who is tonight's payload manager, and his colleagues Michael Collari and Christophe Bardou are part of the group of program directors who have been responsible for maintaining contact with the customers between contract signature and all the way up to tonight's launch.
That's your old job, isn't it?
That's my whole job indeed.
So, l'arrêt des comptes programmé est confirmé. Le temps des comptes s'arrêtera à moins 7 minutes pour une durée estimée inférieure à 30 minutes.
With Flight 162, Arianespace will put 3 satellites in orbit. First, INSAT 3E, a telecommunications satellite built on the INSAT 3 platform. It will supply India with telecom and television services. eBird is a satellite for one of our best customers, EUTELSAT. Built by Boeing, it will provide coverage in Europe for broadband internet services. Smart One for ESA was built on a new platform developed by the Swedish Space Corporation. It will demonstrate new technologies such as electrical propulsion and also serve as a lunar observatory. Smart One will use a unique set of instruments to gather new data about conditions on the moon.
As we went into that film, we heard the DDO was giving some sort of an announcement. Board?
Yeah, that we will have a planned hold in a countdown at -7 minutes for some minutes. This was planned, yeah, so it's normal.
No surprise. All right, we want to say hello to some of the people listening where the broadcast is going out tonight, the folks at Darmstadt, the ISAC people in the headquarters of ESA and EUTELSAT in Paris. Good evening to all of you. Good afternoon to all of you.
Yeah, and also, of course, our people back in Stockholm at the Technical Museum. About 250 people listen to us there.
And not to forget the crews at Bangalore and Hassan for the INSAT people. Pierre Bardier, the DDO, he's the man, excuse me, whose voice you're hearing calling out the key milestones. And you'll hear him call out the stop and the countdown. You see we've gone red.
Which indeed was a planned event for this tonight's countdown.
Now normally the 7-minute mark is the milestone when the computers take over and we move into something called automatic sequence.
Yep. But now let's hear the mission director explain the reasons for this floating H0, as we call it.
Remy, we've moved into now what we call the built-in hold or a programmed red. Why do we have to do that?
Well, we have to do that because of the specific tuning of this engine for this flight. We have to upload
liquide, ce qui ne représente que quelques millimètres.
Millimeters or centimeters in the tank level. But to do that, we need to do this operation during the topping phase, which is the last phase before the automatic liftoff sequence. We have to adjust actually the topping sequence with the liftoff time. That means that somewhere we have to have a hold. And this hold is programmed at -7 minutes before the automatic liftoff sequence to offload. The maximum duration can be 16 minutes and 30 seconds, and at the minimum, let's say, 3 minutes 30, 4 minutes.
Between 3 minutes and 16 minutes, that's quite a big jump now. Why is that?
Because the actual topping cycle is exactly 16 minutes and 30 seconds. And we have a very precise moment in this cycle where we can resume the countdowns.
Well, you see the red where it says Ensemble de Lancement, that's the entire base. Now, the DDO made an announcement while you were watching Romain Cochet that the estimated time of the hold is 13 minutes.
Correct.
Is that right? So, 13 minutes, that's pretty long. What are the consequences of a hold of 13 minutes on tonight's launch?
Well, I think the most important consequence comes from the fact that we have a fairly short launch window tonight. It's only 19 minutes long. Normally, we prefer to have on the order of 3/4 of an hour.
That's a normal window?
Yeah, that's a normal window.
Is that a normal window for a double launch or a triple launch? Like it's that, or a single launch? 3/4
of an hour is a normal window for a double launch. Now, The fact that we have only 19 minutes and that we will now be eating into that time through this hold means that we will only have this one chance of getting off tonight. If we do get a stop in the countdown once we get going again, there is not enough time to establish what the problem was and then get going again.
So we're waiting. If you just joined us, we're waiting. We got stuck at -7 minutes in a programmed red, but it's a programmed red which we thought would not be too long. But the GDO has said it's 13 minutes. We might shift to a short film for you on perhaps something on the launch table while you're waiting. We're waiting to hear news of that. But meanwhile, as Board says, we're eating a little bit into our launch window, which is short to begin with.
Yes.
Now, what's going on while we're waiting for the film to come up on the screen? What's going on the satellite side?
Oh, they will just be waiting.
They're waiting. The launch systems people, all the downrange people and downrange stations
standing by.
That you met.
The countdown all the way up until -7 minutes. The last half hour or so is all standing by anyway. There's always a built-in margin in these things.
Of how long?
Or typically half an hour, the last half hour, before you reach this point.
All right, we're going to have a film coming up for you in about 2 minutes on the Ariane 5 launch table, which will give you an explanation of how that is put together and how that is used. That's the table on which the launcher is sitting now. The shots there that you just saw. Very heavy affair, and it's the table on which the launcher is rolled out from the final assembly building. There are 2 Ariane 5 launch tables. We're waiting for the programmed red. We have an estimated maybe 10 more minutes to go. And what's going on with the other systems on the launch vehicle? Again, it's a waiting game.
Apart from the system which is being exercised just now, which is the fueling of the main stage, it's on hold.
Now you're an RCUA, as you mentioned. You're the customer interface for Ariane for some time. I'm sure you've gone through experiences like this before.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So what's going on your end with the customers?
Well, the customers, they are just on hold as well. The only question that comes up in these kind of situations with the spacecraft is whether or not to take the spacecraft on external power, because sometimes they will have gone on internal power before you get to this stage.
Internal power means the batteries?
Yeah.
So
at some point in time, fairly late in the countdown, you will let the spacecraft go on internal power, so it's totally on its own.
As late, as late as possible to conserve the batteries.
To conserve batteries.
There are a number of operations in the final countdown which do not take place until the latest moment possible, and this is one of them, right? With the turning on the batteries and arming of
explosive systems. All the separation systems that work with explosive cords or bolts. You want to arm those at the very latest point in time.
All right, here we go. Upcoming with a short film for you on the Ariane 5 launch table.
Here's a riddle for you. What looks like a boat, but runs on rails? The answer, the Ariane 5 launch table.
This second Ariane 5 launch table was first used back in November of 2000. That was for Flight 135. At that time, the launcher for 135 was one of 4 launcher campaigns going on here at the CSG at once. That was a first. So you see, having the second launch table makes a big difference. It means we can work on 2 Ariane 5 campaigns at the same time. With us is Martin Unal, who's Ariane's launch operations deputy, and Martin's going to tell us more. Martin, what's the role of the launch table?
The role of the Ariane 5 launch table is to provide the launcher with everything it needs to be ready for launch. It provides propellant for the main stages, electric power for all on-board electronics, and diverse tracking, telemetry, and command which let us carry out all operations. Let's go inside and have a look. In this part of the Ariane 5 launch table, we received the customer base, which let them monitor their satellites during launch operations. The satellites are put through this trapdoor in the floor by a crane, and we secure them on the ceiling with heavy springs which absorb the vibrations at liftoff. From here, customers can connect to their satellites via dedicated links installed by Arianespace on board the launcher. Fiber optic cables can also connect them to their control office in S5 or S1, so they can follow the status of their satellites in real time and make any necessary decisions. A launch table is a real factory. It is as complex as the launch vehicle itself. It must provide everything necessary to the launcher so it can be autonomous. We use it to save the launcher's resources before liftoff, so it can leave the pad with a maximum of fuel and energy on board. The table duplicates a large part of the functions found on the launcher, but must be more resistant to be able to work for the next launch. The launcher, on the other hand, leaves the pad and disappears. You can say that one is almost the mirror image of the other, because the table's role is to provide assistance to all the launcher's needs. Ground crews have a lot to do and can sometimes work twice as much as the launch crews, because they work in the preparation before integration of the launcher, then after the launch as well, to revalidate all installations. We recheck everything systematically each time, and that takes a lot of work. Having two launch tables for Ariane 5 is a tremendous advantage for us in terms of flexibility. Two tables let us prepare one launcher while we have another one on the pad. With two tables, we can double our annual launch rhythm. For customers, this means more flexibility and availability.
The main differences between the Ariane 4 and Ariane 5 launch tables come from the different philosophies adopted in their conception. On Ariane 4, we wanted a minimum of mobile installations because it was so complex. Ariane 5, on the other hand, uses solid boosters which are somewhat hazardous, so the computer bays had to be fixed to springs to protect them from vibrations. We also opted for a mobile infrastructure which protects everything. This also gives us a big advantage in terms of flexibility, since the only connections you as a customer need to make are those when you arrive in the integration zones. None is needed for installation between the table and the launcher. With Ariane 4, once the launcher's on the table and has been checked out, it's already been in the launch zone 2 weeks. The transfer of Ariane 5 is done in 1 day.
À tous de l'EDO, le démarrage est prévu dans 2 minutes environ.
All right, the DDO has just said we should be picking up the countdown again in roughly 2 minutes. Originally, he had called out 13 minutes. I think it's going to be a little shorter than that, though.
That's good.
So we are, well, you saw the shots of the launch table. You can recognize it there under the Ariane 5. You mentioned earlier, Board, about the launch window. We were eating into the launch window now. Ariane can launch at any time. The window is actually determined by the customers, isn't that right?
Absolutely. And on criteria such as power, you want the sun to have a certain angle of incidence onto the solar panels.
Angle of incidence meaning?
Well, the angle which the sun hits the panel, where it's 90 degrees on or slightly off that axis. Ideally, you would want the sun to shine straight onto the panel. Right?
Onto the solar panels, which is how the satellite is powered.
Get their power.
Tenez-vous prêt pour un démarrage sur très court préavis.
All right, he says, the DDO, get ready for a re-picking up of the countdown. What did he say? In a very short time. He wasn't specific, but it would seem that from 13 minutes, then to 2 minutes, then to a, quote, very short time, we should be ready to start up again. We will start up again. You'll see the red bar at the upper right will go green, and we will be moving into the synchronized sequence, the automatic sequence, because when we stop in the countdown, we at this point we always go back to the 7-minute mark.
Yeah, we do.
And pick up again.
Just to continue on the launch window explanation, Joshua, the other element which is determining in terms of...
Attention pour la reprise immédiate du décompte et le début de la séquence synchronisée.
Well, there we go. The DDO says...
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top.
All right. He says we're off and running again. You see we've gone green. We're in this under the 7-minute mark. Do you want to just continue with your...
Le nouveau H0 est 23 heures, 14 minutes, 39 secondes, temps universel.
Right. 11:14 is the new...
14:39.
It was 11:02, I think, before.
Yes.
Was that right?
Yeah.
So we're still all right.
Oh, we're all right.
All right. Briefly, before we'll give the folks a rundown of the synchronized sequence, which we are currently witnessing, but finish up on the window first.
Yeah, it's so the other element is quite simply geometry. That the spacecraft has certain sensors that are looking at the Earth, at the Sun, to determine which attitude they're in. So they need to be pointed in a certain way to do that.
So it's the customer who decides.
The customer defines the launch window. Let's now hear the latest news from Arianespace.
June 11th, Flight 161, Ariane 5, in the third launch of the year, successfully placed in orbit 2 new satellites for international customers, Optus C1 in defense for Australia, and BSAT 2C for Japan. Also in June, the 45th Paris Air Show was a success for Arianespace. The world's first space transportation company signed an order for 30 more Ariane 5 vehicles to fill out the new launcher product line, which will be available to customers launching from Kourou with Soyuz and Vega. Arianespace's Chief Executive Officer, Jean-Yves Le Gall, was present at Euroconsult in Paris this month. Euroconsult, the not-to-be-missed conference, was attended by all Europe's major players in the space sector. Topic of discussion, the anticipated upturn in the market, the return of satellite operators in renewing their fleets, and emergence of new technologies coming online are expected to fuel the uptick. Two new appointments have been made on the European space scene. Jean-Louis Marseille was named a new director of the Guyana Space Center, replacing Pierre Moskva. At the French space agency CNES, Marc Pirchet replaces Eric Dautria as director of Ariane launchers.
We're green again, coming up on the 4-minute mark now. Now we can have our explanation of the synchronized sequence. What it is basically computers taking over, power passing from the ground to make the launcher autonomous.
That is the big change. Up until this point, the operations have been initiated by operators, of course, through the computers.
Human operators.
Absolutely. From the 7-minute mark, the computers do it themselves because there are so many operations that need to be done at the same time. So it's better to let machines who are very good at doing things quickly do that, with the operators now monitoring what's happening.
Now these computers, there are 2 of them, I believe. One monitoring the fluid operations, another monitoring the electrical operations, and they're located up in the Launch Management Center, which we saw earlier with the COEL. These computers also are loading the exact ignition time into the onboard computer, and as I think we mentioned, they're working over some of the, shall we say, hazardous operations.
The launcher is now being armed. You know, all the systems being armed, pressures being brought up to flight pressures, and all that kind of thing. The consequence of this, of course, is that if ever there was a stop in the countdown now, we'd have to go back to the -7-minute mark again in order to put the launcher back into a safe position.
Sounds like a crowded schedule.
It is a very crowded schedule.
And if we take too long, if the computers take too long with one item, then we're back to the 7-minute mark, as you said. We're going to go to some shots now that were taken yesterday of the rollout of the Ariane 5 from the final assembly building on the pad, which we just learned all about, along the rail tracks there. As you see, it gives you a chance to see what the weather's been like all week also, and the weather was the same today. We have a clear night. The 1 or 2 kilometer track from the final assembly building out to the pad. You can see the speed at which Ariane is towed, roughly a kilometer an hour. This process takes most of the day, but the transfer does not take most of the day. It's what happens after.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. When the launcher on its table comes to the pad, then there's a whole lot of work to hook up the launch table to the fluid and electrical systems on the pad. So that's most of the day's work.
Under 2 minutes now, Ariane waiting patiently on the pad. Flight 162, if you just joined us, INSAT and EUTELSAT and SMART. You see, there's a weather map there. You see Kourou just on the Atlantic coast.
And you can see that it's all clear around Kourou, so there's no problem with meteorological conditions tonight.
Of course, one of the reasons the site here was chosen in the 60s when they decided, when they were looking for a site for Europe, was the ability to launch straight over the Atlantic. We're going east tonight, which is where most of the telecom sats go, but we can also go north, and we're still over the Atlantic, over uninhabited areas.
Another benefit of Kourou as a launch site is indeed that the weather is very constant here, so we very rarely have a problem with that.
No hurricanes, no earthquakes. You hear the DDO.
De l'EDO, attention pour le passage à H0 moins 1 minute.
You'll hear them call out the 1 minute mark. Mr. Robardier.
Top, moins 1 minute et décompte.
All right, we're in the final 60 seconds.
And I think it's about time that we explain what's going to happen as we approach the 0 mark. Because at 0, the main engine, the cryotechnic engine on the main stage will light up. It will, during 7 seconds, run up to full speed, be tested for correct temperatures, pressures. And once the onboard computer has determined that that engine is up and running correctly, it will send the ignition command to the 2 boosters. And then the vehicle goes.
That's the point of no return when the boosters are lit.
No way to stop that.
All right, we will let you watch the liftoff in peace. You'll hear the DDO call out the final 10 seconds. We will be back with you once Ariane has cleared the tower.
À tous de l'EDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu. À l'image du Vulcain. Décollage.
Feeling of that raw power of Ariane lifting off, especially you saw as the camera pulled back on liftoff. That was our camera, I think, at Toucan, which is the site closest to the pad at about 4 kilometers. The smoke and the flames roaring off that pad, taking off into the night sky. We're still watching it from the naked eye. We'll probably be able to see the booster jettison.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
And the sound from 13 kilometers away is just coming over here in over Jupiter. I don't know if you can hear it.
Almost making the table shaking here.
The core cryogenic stage and the boosters burning now. The 2 boosters carrying each roughly 240 tons of propellant, providing 99% of the thrust for the vehicle.
The vehicle could very well lift off on that thrust alone, as a matter of fact. And as you've seen, Ariane 5 lifts off very quickly. It's very rapid off the pad because it has a very high thrust-to-weight ratio, higher than Ariane 4.
The on the left-hand side of your screen, on the upper side, you have the cursor. There's 2 lines there, a pale one and a brighter one superimposed on that. The pale line is the ideal trajectory, and on top of that, the brighter one is the actual trajectory. As long as they're more or less superimposed on one another, we're doing fine. Is that right?
That's correct. The cursor represents the actual position of the launcher. So as long as it climbs along that line, we're okay.
And on the bottom left-hand corner, the numbers there?
Quite simply, A is altitude. So we're already at some 70 kilometers altitude. And V is velocity. So we're at 2 kilometers per second
That's
already.
the speed. The DDO has called out the separation of the boosters. This is roughly what happens. The boosters are burnt out. The onboard computer gives the order to jettison them. They fall back in the Atlantic and are not recovered, not reused?
No, they're not. We have in the past sometimes recovered them just to verify the state of the boosters after flight, but not for operational purposes.
But not tonight. You mentioned the speed. You can see on the bottom left we're 2.2 kilometers climbing. Now, what's the speed we need for satellite injection?
We need to get up to 9.8 kilometers per second.
So we're got a little ways to go.
Oh yeah.
We're coming up on the fairing jettison, which will be the next milestone. The DDO has just called that out. The fairing no longer needed now because we're out of the atmosphere.
Yep, indeed. So now we can leave INSAT exposed to the environment, since there's no atmosphere anymore to heat it up or do any other damage. And the fairing is very heavy, so we want to get rid of it as quickly as possible. 750,
800 kilos roughly.
Yeah.
And again, the same sort of separation system, pyrotechnic cords, which will remove the two halves of the fairing.
There is one pyrotechnic line that runs vertically, another one horizontally. So the two halves are pushed away from each other. Drops clear of the launcher.
The core cryogenic stage is the only propulsion burning now. That will burn for a total of 10 minutes, consuming 160 tons of fuel, cryogenic fuel, which means liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen.
Correct. Very cold, both of them.
Different propulsion system than the upper stage, which we'll talk about when we get there, also called the EPS. The EPS
coming up now, Joshua, is an item on high-speed cameras that we use to verify the liftoff events in the post-flight review.
At Arianespace's request, we've put in service some high-speed film cameras at 200 images per second and at 1200 images per second. They let us verify the launcher's attitude from 0 to 100 meters or monitor certain events like, for example, the jettisoning of the umbilical cords on the tower or the jettisoning of the boosters. We have under study right now a high-speed digital camera which will replace these celluloid film machines. Here we're setting up the lenses on the cameras. This instrument will make sure the camera is pointed correctly at the launcher and verify its focus. The framing will be finalized once the launcher is on the launch table in the launch zone. This camera lets us see the proper synchronization of the water deluge which pours in at liftoff when Ariane 5 leaves the table.
Lorsque le lanceur quitte la table. Ici, nous procédons au
Here we're loading the camera. The film is in the magazine. It's 35mm film. We use these cameras to their maximum potential, that is, 200 images per second. Now we're programming equipment which will let us record the Ariane mission. Later we'll use it to verify that the film has functioned properly. With digital cameras, of course, there are no magazines, no film, and therefore no need to develop film. The pictures are stored in a memory, like in a computer. And here we're setting up this camera so that it records the mission correctly.
This is an example why we need technical pictures. You can see here two examples of thermal protection position on the upper part of the boosters. At liftoff, they are jettisoned by two cables linked to the launch table. These pictures are needed to check that the thermal protection is jettisoned at the right time and that it will not hurt the launch vehicle. As you can see, all parts of the Ariane launch vehicle are verified. This process is part of the Ariane policy. We look at the pictures, then use them to upgrade the system.
While you're watching that, the DDO called out speed and everything is normal. We're doing fine on the EPC burn. During the film board, he mentioned the deluge, the water deluge at one point, and it would seem to me that as it comes in, the water comes in at liftoff, and we saw the flames. One would suppose that it's to cool the pad down, but that's not the whole story, is it?
One would suppose that, but the main purpose of the water coming in is actually to reduce noise. The solid boosters, above all, make an enormous amount of noise, which translates into vibration. And squirting water into the jet actually absorbs some of that energy, so that the vibrations that come back onto the launcher and, above all, to the payload is much reduced.
We are coming up on our first downrange tracking station, which will pick up the signal of the Ariane 5. We'll be getting that shortly. You'll hear the DDO probably call that out as well. Ariane's trajectory designed, of course, so the launcher is always visible from the ground station tracking it. And there, the DDO's just called that out. The first stations here are in Kourou, just behind us at a place called Galho. And next down the line is across the border in Brazil at Natal, a station run by the Brazilian Air Force. There will be 2 or 3 other stations.
There's the Ascension Island station and then Malindi at the end.
As Ariane makes her way across the Atlantic and will be picked up by those stations in turn.
We have less than 1 minute to go now to the end of the first stage burn.
On the cursor on the upper left, you can see crawling up to the letters, I don't know if you can read them, SEP EPC, which is separation of the EPC of the core stage. That will be the next milestone. We're coming up, I guess it's fair to say, on the end of the first half of the mission, Ariane 5 being a 2-part vehicle.
There is the lower part, which consists of the main core stage and the 2 solid boosters, and you have the upper part of the launcher, so to speak, which is the EPS upper stage and the payload composite.
So when the EPS burn is completed, we'll hear the DDO call that out, that the extinction, and then we'll hear that it has been jettisoned, and then we will hear that the upper stage has been ignited. All that coming up in just a few short seconds, and then we'll be into the second half of. There's the first stage burnout. Separation of the first stage from the upper stage. And ignition of the second stage. Now you heard him, there was a slight delay in each of those 3 steps. Now these commands, the EPC cutoff command and the jettison of it, you see how that goes, you're watching the cartoon there, and the ignition of the EPS, there's that delay, roughly 6 seconds between each of those operations. Now why is that?
Well, you see, when you, before igniting the upper stage, once you have separated from the lower stage, you need to settle the propellants.
We'll get back to that. We're going to go first to Remy Cochet again on another look at the mission.
The Ariane mission is to inject our 3 passengers in as precise a manner as possible into their geostationary transfer orbit, such as to avoid excessive consumption of propellant during the subsequent orbit raising. The 3 satellites were prepared in the S5 payload preparation facility during July and August. INSAT and Smart 1 were first to arrive. eBird came a little later. INSAT was entirely tested. We carried out full deployments of the solar arrays and the antennas to verify their correct function. Smart 1, being a smaller scientific satellite, had a somewhat shorter preparation program. It has both an electric and a classical chemical propulsion system on board, and it was fueled a bit later. Next, eBird, a classic Boeing design, which we know very well, was prepared in a rather short time, filled, then integrated on its payload adapter. The launch date was delayed 4 weeks due to additional checks requested by the INSAT customer, in order to be certain its entire system met its specifications. Tonight we have a triple launch, which is, if I can put it that way, an extension of the familiar Ariane Silda double launch system. Smart 1 occupies the lower berth in the Silda. Above Smart we have integrated eBird, and the final passenger, INSAT 3E, is on top of the Silda, all of this finally covered by the fairing.
The upper stage burning fine, all is well up above our heads. We didn't get a chance to finish. We're being picked up by the next tracking station, that's Ascension Island.
Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to finish. Why the delay in the 3 commands?
Well, it's to make sure that the propellant, since after you separate, the upper stage is actually in 0G environment for a little while. So to make sure that the propellant settle in the bottom of the tanks and you get a nice feed to the engine, you have to accelerate it a little bit with small thrusters. That takes a few seconds, and then you ignite.
Our speed now is coming up on 8 kilometers per second. The magic number we need is 9.8 roughly to separate the satellites, so a short ways to go to the first satellite, first of the 3 tonight. INSAT followed by EUTELSAT, and then the eBird, sorry, and then SMART. We're focusing in on the satellites now, as the EPS is the only propulsion system. 10 tons of storable propellant, different from the liquid hydrogen and oxygen.
Indeed, it's a different technology.
Anything you want to say about the different propulsion systems?
Well,
we'll have to. You can tell us after the description. We're going to have descriptions of all the satellites, starting with INSAT.
The spacecraft is the 4th spacecraft in INSAT 3 series, designed and developed by the Indian Space Research Organization, an organization of Government of India, Department of Space. The spacecraft is primarily a communication satellite providing 36 transponders. The transponders are meant for TV broadcasting, telecommunication, and for VSAT terminals. These VSATs are used by the industries in the country, and they can give point-to-point data communication, and it is a quite useful thing which is being used by the Indian industries. This spacecraft basically is a 3-axis stabilized spacecraft having a mass of 2,775 kilograms and a power of 2,600 watts in the orbit. This is the basic structure of the spacecraft.
So can we finish with our role? What's the role of the EPS?
Well, it's to provide the last bit of velocity required to reach the injection speed we need. And secondly, the upper stage will also do the orientations of the spacecraft and the various elements of the upper composite as they separate.
So this is something you don't have with the lower stage. You have power, propulsion, plus orientation for the satellites. Few more minutes to go in the EPS burn. Sole propulsion now is the storable propellant.
It's as I started to say, it's a very simple engine. It's pressure fed. There are no pumps, no turning gear, so it's a very reliable system, albeit a little less efficient maybe than hydrogen oxygen.
Hydrogen oxygen is
that is as good as you get in rocket propulsion, right?
But a little more, shall we say, delicate a system than storable propellant.
Definitely. Well, it's time now to go to a description of the eBird spacecraft by the EUTELSAT project manager.
eBird is a revolution. It's the first spacecraft in the world which has been optimized for two-way broadband internet access. It marks further steps in EUTELSAT's strategy to providing satellite solutions for broadband access in Europe. The satellite will be located at 33 degrees east and will serve Europe and Turkey through 4 high-power beams. And the access to these 4 high-power beams can be also through one single hub for a very high-efficient European connectivity. eBird is going to be a very important contributor to all national and pan-European broadband program in Europe. It will be a major asset for companies who depend heavily on high-quality communications to maintain their competitive edge, and this regardless of their location in Europe.
All right, there's eBird. The next satellite description coming up will be SMART 1. Now, SMART 1, I would like to get some terminology straight. We've heard about microsatellites and mini satellites and small satellites. Now, how do we differentiate? Is there a
well, in the
mass?
In the Arianespace lingo, so to speak, we tend to talk about microsatellites up to say 100 to 120 kilos.
Micro up to 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mini satellites going up to maybe 500 kilos or thereabouts, and then small sats above that.
Okay, so I can call Smart 1 a mini satellite.
In that terminology, you could, yes.
Okay.
Small but very good.
Small but not simple.
No, not at all. It's a quite complex spacecraft. It's a complex mission, and it has a very high degree of autonomy built in because of its status on this launch as an auxiliary passenger.
Auxiliary meaning?
Meaning that it flies when there is space in excess on the launch. So it has to be able to fly with just about any co-passenger and conform to any type of launch window.
But as you mentioned, it's the passengers that decide on the launch window. And how big a say in the launch window does the auxiliary passenger have?
It doesn't.
None?
No.
So it's contractual.
That is a formal position. Of course, there is always some kind of flexibility in that. Let's now listen to Giuseppe Racca, the Smart 1 project manager, who will tell us about Smart 1.
The objectives of this mission are dual. On one side we have technology objectives, and we also have scientific objectives of concerning lunar science. The main technology objective is to test primary electric propulsion, and we will use the system to travel from the orbit where the Ariane 5 launch will leave us, in the GTO orbit, directly to the moon. The way the electric propulsion works is that it gives a very low thrust. So we cannot use a big push to get to the moon directly as the previous missions like Apollo missions have been doing, but we will go very gently by spiraling out from the GTO orbit, enlarging the orbit more and more until we get to particular points between the Earth and the moon where the gravity of the moon competes with the gravity of the Earth. And we will be able to be captured almost free of charge, consuming very little fuel, and going directly into lunar orbit. It will take quite a long time because we will have to spiral very slowly. So it will take about from 1 year to 1.5 years to get to the moon. And then the mission will continue rotating around the moon for about 6 months. So the total duration, it will be around 2 years, 2.5 years. While we will be at the moon, we will perform a global mapping of the moon surface with different techniques and different instruments, which are also themselves a technological objective of the mission.
All right, coming up on acquisition from our final tracking station, which we may pick up shortly over in Africa. While we have some time, I thought we could go to the quiz question. What do you say?
Why not?
All right, the Arianespace quiz question number 162. Now, we established this terminology about minis and micros and small sats. I did that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm sure you could guess. Arianespace quiz question number 162. This is for everybody out there. Can you name one or two of the other minis that we've launched? This is, again, between 100 and 500 kilos. We've established that. Okay. There's not a whole lot of them. There's maybe a little more than half a dozen. Can you name them? Maybe what flights they rode on and when they were. Again, Arianespace quiz question number 162. The mini satellites weighing between 100 and 500 kilos. Can you name any one or two of the others that Ariane has launched? So you guys go to work out there. We will give the answer for you probably right at the very end of the broadcast. You have any idea? I'm sure you do.
I might be able to come up with something.
You have another 20 minutes.
Thank you.
In the meantime, SMART is the first of a series of missions. And what's different about it? All right, we've been picked up by our final tracking station, Malindi in Kenya, which will see the EPS and satellite separations operated over there by the University of Rome. The station was upgraded for the Ariane 5 program. My question
to get back to your question, it's a spacecraft which has a double mission. One, it will demonstrate technologies that ESA will use for future scientific spacecraft, bigger missions. And second, it will do some very useful science in its orbit around the moon, because unlike the other two spacecraft, this one is going to another celestial body.
The first European moon mission.
First European moon mission.
So high hopes for the SMART mission. It'll take a little while to get there. We want to go to some shots because we have the triple launch tonight. We have 3 different satellite separations.
Yeah,
I'm counting on you to give us an explanation of each one.
When the upper stage has stopped burning, we will go through an orbital ballet with the separation of INSAT coming first. The composite will reorient itself to separate the Silda double launch structure. Reorient again, such as to put eBird into its separation attitude. It will go off. Yet another reorientation for the structure which has been sitting around and on top of Smart 1, and then finally Smart 1 will be put into its required attitude and subsequently separated. It's a very complex maneuver when you go through this for 3 spacecraft. This is the first time Ariane 5 actually makes a true triple launch. So there are 5 bodies to be separated, and 6 bodies altogether that need to not come into contact with each other afterwards in the mission.
So a very complex space ballet, which is complex enough when we have a double launch, but as you said so rightly, even more delicate when you have 3 spacecraft. And I imagine there's more or less the same situation, even if there's only there's 1 passenger.
All spacecraft have requirements on the attitude at separation, and some even want to be spun up to some rotational speed. So yeah.
That again is part of the...
Always.
The men from SMART watching their computers. We're going now to an interview with the new chairman of ISRO, Mr. Madhavan Nair.
I am Madhavan Nair. I have taken over as chairman ISRO from Dr. Kasturirangan on 1st of September. I'm extremely happy to be here in the launch center at Kourou to participate in the Ariane launch. It carries our spacecraft INSAT 3E as one of the passengers, and this is the 4th in the series of 3rd generation spacecraft which India has built up. This is essentially a communication spacecraft which has got 24 transponders in the C-band and 12 transponders in the extended C-band. This is going towards augmenting the capacity for communication, television broadcasting in India. Of course, we have a long-standing relation with Arianespace. This is the 11th launch in the series. The first was the Ariane passenger payload, which went as an experimental spacecraft with Ariane. And later we had commercial launches of Indian-built spacecraft with the Ariane launch vehicles. Ariane 4 had a good track record with the Indian spacecraft, and Ariane 5 too this is the 2nd launch of that kind. And we are extremely happy this spacecraft has been integrated and is ready for the launch, which is scheduled for tomorrow. We are happy with the performance of the spacecraft subsystem so far, and also I understand the preparations have gone on well with respect to the vehicle preparations. On this occasion, I can wish good luck to the entire team for the success of the mission.
Dr. Madhavan Nair, of course, we interviewed him yesterday. You heard him say good luck for the mission tomorrow. That's the reason for that.
And Dr. Madhavan Nair, before he became president of ISRO, was heading up their launcher development division. His predecessor, Dr. Kasturirangan, has been called to serve in the Indian Senate.
A new career in politics. We wish him well. ISRO, the Indian Space Research Outfit, was formed in 1969, originally under the Department of Atomic Energy. And then when the government of India set up its Space Commission and the DOS, Department of Space, in 1972, ISRO came under the DOS executive. Very active program over there with development of satellites and launchers and sounding rockets and, of course, the ground systems. We've had the extinction of the
upper stage
EPS now. India has, of course, very highly developed a satellite program with the INSAT series, in which Ariane is, of course, heavily involved as a launcher, and also the Indian Remote Sensing Satellite Group, IRS, for resources monitoring and management. And in some of the INSATs, I believe on 3E and 3A, it was a mix of both.
It was a double mission. Yeah.
which is not so common. Ariane has launched. This is the 11th, I think, Indian satellite. We're into the. We're well into your space ballet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The upper stage is maneuvering around here.
And INSAT due to be separated in just about 1 minute. You can see on the cursor on the upper left, crawling up to INSAT 3E.
Some of the tension has now left the room, but there are still the separations to be performed.
3 separations to be performed.
Well, 5 actually, if you count all the equipment that needs to be...
The ISRO people on the phone checking with, I imagine, Bangalore and Hassan and all their people, reading the telemetry, coming back. Separation expected in just under 30 seconds of INSAT 3E. The 11th ISRO-built satellite to be launched by Ariane.
Séparation du satellite INSAT 3E.
And there, the DDO has called out the first good news. We have separation, roughly looking like this, just as Bohr described it.
Yep. And the upper stage will now start the maneuvers to get into position to get rid of the Silda double launch system.
You notice, those of you familiar with the broadcast, that there was no applause after the separation, which is...
It is a very great moment for the Indian customer, but out of respect for the 2 who are still on the vehicle, one usually waits with that until the end.
So the applause we should be hearing after the separation of SMART. Turning to our next passenger, which is eBird from EUTELSAT. 19th EUTELSAT flying aboard an Ariane tonight.
Yeah, and we'll now have a film telling us what eBird is all about.
EUTELSAT introduces eBird, a new satellite optimized for two-way broadband internet services. The launch of this new satellite marks a further step in EUTELSAT's objective to develop satellite solutions for broadband access in Europe. eBird's unique design will enable highly efficient and cost-effective use of bandwidth for two-way broadband communications. This can be done through 16 36 MHz transponders for hub-to-user communications and 4 108 MHz transponders for user-to-hub communications. This configuration enables the delivery of interactive services such as distance learning, voice over IP, IP access and corporate networks. With low-cost bandwidth for forward and return links using sub-1 meter antennas. Located in geostationary orbit at 33 degrees east, eBird will serve Europe and Turkey through 4 high-power beams on the forward link and 2 high-gain beams on the return link. In addition to addressing regional requirements within each beam, all 4 beams can be served through a single hub for highly effective pan-European connectivity. With its proximity to EUTELSAT's EUROBIRD 1 satellite at 28.5 degrees east, eBird is also perfectly positioned for bundling digital TV and broadband one-way services. eBird can make an important contribution to pan-European and national broadband programs, as well as businesses of all sizes who depend on quality communications for maintaining their competitive edge. eBird will be an essential contribution to resolving the digital divide. eBird, a powerful contribution to building broadband in Europe.
The observant viewer will have seen that we have a little hole in the curve following the launcher right now. This is not a sign of anything untoward. It's just a little connection problem. The telemetry is still being received at Malindi, and everything is going nominally.
The DDO has just said that the Silda has been separated, seen by Malindi. Now the Silda is the
double launch structure, which is just a cylinder which height can be varied to adapt it to the needs of the spacecraft, which is sitting in lower position on a double launch.
Adaptable, there are 6, I think, versions of it, from 5 meters in height to 6.5 meters in height, depending on
structures built by Astrium. Of course, you don't want to use anything higher than you absolutely need to, because that's extra mass, and that mass you would rather spend on the spacecraft than on the carrying structures.
We're waiting for separation of eBird, coming up in 40 seconds, roughly. We'll join the fleet of the 23 satellites that EUTELSAT has flying now. The company, one of the world's largest systems, reaching into Europe and the Middle East, Africa, Asia, South America, Australia. 25 years of experience, Paris-based group, 400 people roughly.
One of Arianespace's absolutely biggest customer.
Yeah, our partnership goes back to 1983 with the first launch. You'll hear the DDO in just a few short seconds. And there he says, eBird separated successfully. The second bit of good news. Again, very polite hold of applause on behalf of everyone here. So that's good news for our friends at EUTELSAT. Congratulations.
So now we will have to reorient again to let go of the structures that have carried eBird and that are still surrounding Smart 1.
We're going to have a film on Smart 1 that'll be coming up in just a few short seconds. We'll tell you everything you need to know about that satellite, our final passenger, Smart 1. Film coming up, take a look.
We've studied it with robots in orbit. We've visited it in person. We've even crashed into it on purpose to try and kick up something interesting. Yet our nearest celestial neighbour, the Moon, still holds mysteries. No one has set foot on the Moon since 1972, the end of an era of exploration in which Apollo astronauts brought back 382 kilograms of material from the lunar surface. But how was the Moon formed? Thanks to lunar samples, scientists now favour a theory that the Moon is a result of a collision that took place soon after the birth of the solar system 4,500 million years ago. When the Earth was nearly complete, a gigantic asteroid the size of Mars supposedly collided with our planet, flinging vaporized rock and debris from both bodies into space. Some of it went into orbit around the Earth and then recondensed and solidified to make the Moon. If the theory is correct, the Moon should contain less iron than the Earth, compared to lighter elements such as magnesium and aluminium. Smart 1's compact imaging X-ray spectrometer, or DKIX, could make a significant contribution to this scientific issue. We think of the Moon as being grey, but through infrared eyes, it reveals the colours of its mineral resources. Another key instrument on board Smart 1 will reveal what kind of geological processes have occurred on the Moon. SIR, Smart 1's infrared spectrometer, is derived from a commercially available instrument that has been adapted for the exploration of planets and asteroids. Scientists have long speculated whether or not the Moon harbours water ice at its south pole. Smart 1 carries a miniature camera called AMI, which will make the first detailed study of the region in the visible light spectrum at varying angles, something that could help determine if colonies will ever be established there.
You may have heard of the colonization of the Moon. If you want to put a base on the Moon, you want a point where you get energy constantly, and recent lunar missions gave us indications that there is what we call a point of eternal light, a peak which would be at the South Pole, where the sun is always illuminating this peak. And if you want to build such a station, you would put your solar collectors to generate energy right there. And one of the things that we ask ourselves, where precisely is this peak? And with the camera that we fly on the Smart 1 mission, we go around the moon for many months, and we can go back to the South Pole and really look for this peak of eternal light.
Even if we have a long way to go before there is a possibility of colonizing the moon, there is no doubt that interest in the moon is making a comeback. Europe's entree into lunar exploration with Smart 1 is part of a larger roadmap that could prepare the moon or other planets such as Mars or Venus for future human exploration.
La Lune est un tremplin naturel.
The moon is a natural step towards the exploration of other planets. There are some synergies between the scientific study of Mars and the moon, for example. We can also use the moon to learn how to use the new technologies that will be needed for rovers and robots on Mars or on the other planets.
Des rovers, des robots à la surface de Mars ou d'autres planètes. Nous pouvons sur la Lune.
We'll learn how to use in situ resources from another planetary body, which will be useful for the exploration of the solar system.
Apprendre à vivre sur la Lune en préparation de missions humaines dans le système solaire.
Well, there you are. Everything you wanted to know about the Smart 1 mission, but was afraid to ask. We have, during this little bit of time, been informed of the fact that the INSAT 3E telemetry has been received already by the Hassan station. So at least one of the spacecraft has told us that it's up there. That leads me to an issue which we should talk a little bit about now, which is that whereas the Ariane mission is now going towards its end, and it looks that it's going to be a successful end, that is only the start of the activities for our 3 passengers. INSAT 3E has been already acquired in its telemetry. It will do its first apogee engine burn in about 2 days on its second orbit. We just heard that the structures around Smart 1 has been separated correctly. So now Smart 1 is the last one and coming up. The INSAT 3E spacecraft is expected to be operational in about 2 weeks. eBird will be acquired a bit later this evening. It will fire its apogee engine on Tuesday next week, and it's expected to be operational by end of October. As far as Smart 1 is concerned, on separation, its onboard computer will activate. It will switch the telemetry emitter on at about 100 seconds later, and the solar arrays will be commanded to deploy 21 minutes after separation. It's a very slow deployment of those arrays. It takes 9 minutes. At 1 hour and 15 minutes into the mission, the ESOC control center will start commissioning the spacecraft, and the first activation of its electrical propulsion system is expected in about 2.5 days from now. I would like to take this opportunity to say a special word to Mr. Jean-Jacques Duminil, the EUTELSAT technical director, who is down here as the EUTELSAT spacecraft mission director. This is his last launch, as he is going into retirement in about 2 months, and I would like to express our appreciation of the collaboration that we had over the years, and wish him good luck.
Séparation Smart 1.
There we are. Smart has separated, and the applauses can go. Relief evident on the faces of all the people here in the hall. But again, now the work starts for all these people. In a few moments we will see a replay of the launch from another camera that followed the flight. And I'll let you enjoy those images as they come.
Well, the main events are over, but the excitement has certainly not left the building. There's more to come, Flight 162, in particular the speeches. We're waiting for Arianespace Chief Executive Jean-Yves Le Gall, who's going to come make his way out of the fishbowl, the operations side, and he's going to join us here in the Red Room, the VIP section of Jupiter, very shortly. He will be making his speech. He will also be presenting 4 speakers who will follow. We will hear from ESA and EUTELSAT and ISAC and ISRO. We're setting up the mics and the podium for these gentlemen just off to the right from where we're standing. And while we're waiting, we thought it was a good idea of my colleague and friend Pierre Junier, the French commentator, to give you an idea of some of these satellite in-flight operations that are being carried out at this hour by some of the ground crews, because of course, although the Ariane mission has terminated successfully, a lot of things are just getting underway for a lot of people on the ground, and we wanted to salute people at Hassan and ISAC. Pierre.
Thank you, Jos. Eh bien, oui, comme
Yes, as Jean-Paul said, we're waiting for the statements of the different personalities. We'll have Jean-Yves Le Gall, who'll be talking about the 3 satellites on board, a successful mission for Arianespace. But as you know, for the satellites, the flight operations are going to start because we've put them in a geostationary transfer orbit, so these ground stations will have to work. There are 3 to ensure that this transfer orbit becomes the definitive orbit, the geostationary orbit, 30,000 kilometers above the Earth. These satellites are a bit like babies. We have to establish a communication with them. We want everything to work properly, and gradually we'll ask them to do some more complicated things. We're going to position them thanks to sensors, so that with the sunlight we can have a precision, an accurate statement on the position. Then we're going to develop some panels. And so now we'll hand over to Jean-Yves Le Gall, the CEO of Arianespace.
Good evening. It is with great pleasure that I can now share the success of Flight 162 with you. Tonight, Ariane 5 has orbited satellites belonging to our customers, ISRO, EUTELSAT, and ESA. It is the first time that an Ariane 5 has launched 3 satellites. It is also the first time that we launch a lunar probe. And judging by the orbit that it has been left in, it's on its good way. I therefore address my most sincere congratulations and thanks to the technical teams of our customers at CNES Launcher Directorate, as well as the Guyana Space Center, and of course those of our industrial partners and Arianespace. Again, bravo for this superb success, and with that I give the floor to our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Le Gall, Mr. President, Mr. Daskata, Mr. Marseille, my dear French colleagues, my dear Indian colleagues. It's a proud moment for me from the Indian side to be witnessing this great event this evening. In fact, yesterday I had an opportunity to look at the Ariane vehicle. It was quite charming and elegant standing on the launch pad. But today it has proven its strength and precision. It has put the INSAT spacecraft into the precise orbit, and my hearty congratulations to the entire Arianespace team, the ESA team, and the CST team who were instrumental in this grand success. Of course, I'm very glad to say that the INSAT 3 spacecraft have been acquired by our station at Hassan, and the performance of the spacecraft is normal. So we hope that we will be able to complete the remaining operations and make this a grand success for the national program. As all of you know, that we have a long-standing relation with Arianespace. In fact, this is the 11th launch and 10th in the commercial series, and I'm happy that we have come to the 2-digit numbers in the launches with Ariane. and we are extremely happy with the services which is provided by this agency so far. Of course, I am very proud to see my co-passengers provided by the EUTELSAT, the EUTELSAT Corporation, as well as the ESA in orbiting their spacecraft into the orbit. My congratulations to your team members. Of course, I would like to say a few words about the Indian space program. It is essentially tuned towards benefiting the common man at large, and we have been successful in providing services which meets the day-to-day needs of the people in the country. The INSAT series of spacecraft is a mainstay for communication and broadcasting in the country, and we have got an array of nearly 95 transponders in the orbit in 5 spacecraft which are already fully operational. This becomes the 6th one in the series, which will provide additional capacity of about 36 transponders, and that goes to the enhancing the national needs at large. It is not only the communication and broadcasting purposes. We are targeting very unique programs to meet the needs, and of course one of them is the tele-education, to provide the educational program to the poor and the needy, the telemedicine program which provides the sophisticated medical services from the metros to the villages and the remote areas in the country. And of course this is going to be very popular, and it is going to support the national programs at large. As you know that the ISRO's programs are fully supported by the Indian government, and it has got a well chalked out program for next 10 years targeting for developing newer spacecraft, newer launch systems, and providing application programs at large. At this moment, I would like to congratulate my Indian colleagues who have sincerely worked for this program, and especially the type of the crisis which has gone through in the last 1 month. Their sincere efforts have made sure that all the corrective actions which is required to make the spacecraft reliable has been carried out within the shortest possible time. And also my thanks to the Ariane team for accommodating with patience the delay which has occurred on this count. And once again, my sincere appreciation and congratulations to the entire team from France, ESA, and the Indian continent on this joint venture. Thank you very much.
Ben voilà, c'est encore un magnifique lancement.
Well, there we go. Once again, a magnificent launch for Ariane. I'd like to thank on behalf of EUTELSAT, Mr. Le Gall, of course, and all the teams of Ariane, Arianespace, the CNES, the industrial teams. I'd also like to thank the satellite teams and congratulate our fellow passengers, especially with regard to eBird. I'd like to congratulate Boeing on their systems, and of course, my small team at EUTELSAT. Of course, we're very satisfied, like with every launch, but this launch was something that was rather special for us in EUTELSAT, to the extent that our satellites are able to achieve high-speed internet, but eBird was the first one designed specifically for this function. It is optimized to offer high-speed internet, two-way high-speed internet services. And as far as we're concerned, it will be the tool which is the precursor of a whole series of satellites in order so that we can resolve the digital divide, not just in France, but in Europe and all the other countries in Central Europe, for instance. All those countries are going to join the European community. That's why we'll be partying, EUTELSAT, they're partying already in Paris. And as Mr. Berreton said, our chairman said he asked me to to sincerely thank Mr. Le Gall on his behalf.
Well, I'm very pleased to stand here and thank Mr. Le Gall, the staff of Arianespace, the support from CNES, the staff of the European Space Agency, the industrial contractors who've brought us to this point. It's very nice that Europe is now on its way to the moon. I think it's also very nice in showing and sharing this launch, this magnificent launch, with two customers using space for, let's say, the utilitarian use of space, using space directly to benefit people on Earth. I still feel by going to the moon, we also are benefiting people on Earth. And I think it's very important in Europe that we continue to look outwards as we also look how to improve things down here. Smart One is a very smart spacecraft, and it's been built by a very smart team. It's a step into the future. It contains lots of new technology, lots of miniaturization, which are going to allow us to do more science, to see more of our universe, understand more about our solar system, and indeed thereby where we are here on this planet right now. So for me, this is a tremendous step. There are going to be more spacecraft coming to do science of the universe, which are going to have benefited from what Smart One has started to do now. I think it's a great evening for us here, and I'd like to thank again Mr. Le Gall and the Ariane team for getting us off on our way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before concluding this wonderful evening,
I would like to thank Pierre Moscow, who after 4 years at the helm of the Guyana Space Center, has returned to the Toulouse Technical Center. I would also like to congratulate his successor, Jean-Louis Marcet, for this first superb success. We'll be back by the end of November for our next launch.
We're going to leave you on with shots of the replay. We have just a minute to say goodbye. The answer to the quiz question, by the way, can you name one or the other of the mini satellites weighing from 1 to 500 from 1 to 500 kilos? Did you get any of those?
Arsène.
Arsène, well done. 154 kilos, the amateur radio satellite. Any more?
No.
LD Rex, 183. Equator S from the Max Planck Institute, 229 kilos. Some AMSATs going way back and going all the way back to launch number 6, Sirio telecom satellite. So anybody out there, you got any of those answers, congratulations. And you'll have Bård Ellertson's personal check for 162 euros, isn't that right?
You never said that.
Oh. Well, that's it from Kourou with a 40th auxiliary payload on up and 268 passengers. Joshua Jampel with Bård Ellertson.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for being with us. See you next time.